This has probably been one of my most requested reviews for me to do ever since the start of my channel, Batman Arkham City. Many people consider this game to be the best of the series, which I shall reserve my opinion on for a future video, but there's no doubt this has been and will always be a great Batman game. I'm also still very much in the Batman spirit after seeing the new movie a couple months ago, which I loved by the way, but I figured now would be a great time to finally get to Arkham City and the rest of the series as well. The only review in the series I've made so far was for Arkham Asylum, which was already 8 months ago, so I'm sorry to make you guys wait so long for me to do City, but this game was perfect for me to indulge in my fantasies. I'm vengeance. It helps me forget that this ever happened. So anyways, I replayed Batman Arkham City in its entirety in 2022, and I'm going to give you guys my honest thoughts and opinions on how the game holds up, and let you know whether or not I recommend it in 2022. Surprise! So first up, let's talk about the story. I would just like to start by saying that any Batman project involving Kevin Conroy as Batman and Mark Hamill as the Joker is very likely to be amazing, at least in the realm of voice acting, which of course to nobody's surprise, they are amazing once again in City. To me, the story in Arkham City in general as a game feels like a comic book brought to life. There are so many Batman characters stuffed into this one game and story, which easily could have felt forced and a bit much, but I think it was handled about as well as it could be. There are so many great side villains in this game: Bane, Mr. Freeze, Penguin, Victor Zsasz, Two-Face, Riddler, Deadshot, Mad Hatter, Ra's al Ghul, Harley Quinn, and of course the two main antagonists, Hugo Strange and Joker. Every villain looks, sounds, and feels very accurate and faithful to their comic book designs, and this is where video games have an advantage over live action, because in a video game, you can make the characters look however you want, so they all look faithful to their original design. And of course, it's not all villains in Arkham City either. Catwoman has a very large role. In fact, she has her entire subplot in a DLC that weaves through the main narrative, and we have a few cameos from characters like Robin as well, who I wish had more screen time, but still cool to see him in the game nonetheless. The introduction to this game is quite iconic now. It's an extremely dark opening as Bruce Wayne is captured and enters Arkham City, a portion of Gotham that has been completely isolated to house all the criminals and prisoners of Gotham. And Batman is thrown right into it in a city full of hostiles, similar concept to Arkham Asylum but on a much bigger scale. Dr. Hugo Strange is in charge of Arkham City and is commencing the mysterious Protocol 10 that will begin in 8 hours. While at the same time, the Joker has a mystery of his own going on, where he seems to be sick from the Titan formula he used in the previous game and needs Batman's help to find a cure. And for a little incentive, he poisons Batman with his blood and thousands of people in the rest of Gotham as well. I was a little worried that Arkham City might be a bit overambitious with its narrative, because it's very easy to mess up a story that has multiple main antagonists, but I feel Arkham City does it very well. I found Strange and Joker both to be great antagonists. Granted, Strange hardly gets any screen time, but you can feel his presence throughout the game, and the suspense that builds as he announces Protocol 10 getting even closer as the night progresses. Just like Asylum and the rest of the series actually, this whole story takes place in the span of one night, as your Batman suit gets more and more damaged and worn down as you progress. I definitely think this concept gets repetitive, as Origins and Night does this as well, but for City it's fine because this is only the second game in the series, and I think it makes a lot of sense for all of this to happen in one long, grueling, and exhausting night for Batman. I honestly believe Arkham City's story is one of the best Batman stories you can experience of any medium, be it comics or live action, and the ending is absolutely phenomenal in my opinion. I don't think I could have asked for a better ending to this game, and the way the game builds up these unpredictable plot twists is just fantastic. I really don't have many complaints for the story, other than maybe hoping some side characters will get more screen time, especially Robin, but considering how short the game is, it's not a huge deal. Batman Arkham series is known for its addictive gameplay formula, and Batman Arkham City improved upon Asylum's gameplay in so many ways. Of course, the ever so satisfying free-flowing combat that has inspired many other games' combat systems is even better in Arkham City. It's smoother, there's more moves and special skills, more gadgets to combo with it. It just feels like the natural evolution from Asylum. And while it's still not perfect, like personally, I'd like to be able to hit enemies on the ground instead of having to do a ground takedown. That was something that was added in Arkham Knight, but the combat just feels better overall from Asylum. There are times where it looks like Batman is gliding in combat, since you have a much larger range to attack enemies in City, especially with the free flow state you unlock in the skill tree. It does look a bit unrealistic, but it makes the combat a lot smoother and easier to get higher combos. Of course, the animations also look great. It's pretty brutal, and I love the sound effects in the game. The finishers where Batman breaks an enemy's arm or leg is really satisfying as well. The critical strikes is another ability you unlock in the skill tree, where if you time your attacks one after the other and don't spam the attack button, you're rewarded with a critical strike, which counts as 2 hits in your combo meter instead of 1, allowing you to build up combos much faster. There's a ton of new moves and attacks in the skill tree as well, like the Bat Swarm and Shockwave attack. In the expansive skill tree, you're also able to upgrade your suit's ballistic and combat armor, as well as even upgrade a few of your gadgets. There's the usual gadgets from Asylum, like the Batarang, Explosive Gel, Line Launcher, Cryptographic Sequencer, Remote-Controlled Batarang, and the Sonic Batarang, along with a lot of new gadgets. The Disruptor that allows you to disable mines, enemy weapons, even Mr. Freeze's suit, the Remote Electrical Charge that is needed to open doors or complete numerous puzzles throughout the missions that can be used to shock enemies in combat as well, the Freeze Blast that allows you to freeze over vents and spawn little icebergs in water that you can use as a raft, as well as the Freeze Cluster, which is pretty similar but can freeze multiple things at once. The Mine Detonator allows you to set off mines, which is helpful for getting those pesky Riddler trophies, and my personal favorite, the Smoke Pellet, which is a smoke bomb that allows you to break the line of sight from enemies and stay in stealth, which is especially useful when you're being shot at. The Grapnel Boost was also introduced into this game that you get from doing the AR challenges in the world, and that allows you to launch and glide off things you grapple to in the world, which makes traversal quicker and easier. Arkham City also has a decent amount of enemy variety, with the Shock, Blade, Shield, Armored, and Titan enemies, which each have a specific weakness or move you need to exploit to take them down, so you can't just keep pressing attack and counter the whole time in combat. Those Shock enemies are really annoying though, as you can only attack them from behind, so they ruined a lot of my combos. As for the mission structure, lots of detective work and investigating, which isn't always the most interesting and fun thing to do, but it definitely helps capture the immersion of being Batman and doing detective work. There's a good amount of puzzles in the game that aren't usually too hard, but can offer up a decent challenge now and again, especially with the Riddler. And there's quite a lot of boss fights, which are great in Arkham City. The boss fights are one of the best parts about the game for sure. Each one feels unique and varied. It'll rarely have you do the same type of boss fight twice, and this game has that famous Mr. Freeze boss fight, which many consider to be one of the best in all of video games, because Freeze actually evolves and learns how you attack him, and he sets up some sort of countermeasure, so you have to take him down in a different way every time, all while he's scanning and following your footsteps. It really forces you to use your head and isn't some mindless boss fight where you spam attack and dodge. Then of course there's the stealth in the game, which isn't the most complex, but still always fun. The gameplay in Arkham City is really satisfying and addicting, and Rocksteady at this point knew what people loved about their formula, and they just made it bigger and better than before, and it was a great result. Like I mentioned earlier, Arkham City is like the Asylum, but well, way bigger. This is the first Arkham game to be an open world. Asylum had some open sections, but was in no way an open world game, and this change to open world is one of the many reasons so many people love Arkham City. There are no civilians, it's a city full of criminals, supervillains, and political prisoners. I love the aesthetic of Arkham City. It's trashed, crime-infested, dark, and rural, with that beautiful moonlight sunlight cascading over the city. Criminals and thugs are roaming everywhere, belonging to one of the gangs, be it Joker or Two-Face. The world complements Batman and the tone of the game very well. It's kind of a given for anything Batman related that it's got to have a dark and gritty aesthetic to go with it. Arkham City is quite small for an open world, even if it doesn't feel like it sometimes, but it's very immersive and detailed, and I take a small rich world like this over a big empty one any day. I love how you can hear the criminals talking to each other about the recent events of the story as you're just gliding around. It's really impressive how it updates and changes depending on where you are in the story. I mean, maybe they could have used more voice actors for the generic criminals and thugs, since it's like the same two voices, but it didn't really bother me all that much. Some people get annoyed by the criminals constantly talking, but I personally like it. Again, the traversal is really fun. The grappling hook with the boost and gliding around with the cape is a great system. I like how the game has a very minimal HUD as well, and rather than having a mini-map, the game will show your objectives with a bat signal in the sky of the world. There's also a decent amount of side quests in this open world as well. A lot of the villains have their own side quest thread, like the phones with Zsasz, the Titan containers with Bane, tracking down Deadshot, saving hostages from Riddler's games, breaking out of Mad Hatter's psychological battles. I loved how they utilized the villains. My only complaint is the final battle for some of them is very underwhelming. Like after all that time of chasing down ringing phones for Zsasz, just to end with you pressing a single button to take him down is kind of lame. It was like that for Deadshot 2, which was disappointing. It would have been nice to have a more climactic boss fight. There's more to do outside the side quests as well though, like the AR training, which requires you to do some kind of challenge for upgrades scattered throughout the world, and some of which were pretty hard, especially the advanced ones. As for graphics, the game holds up very well. Even Asylum from 2009 still looks pretty good, and Arkham City is over a decade old now, believe it or not, and there were still times when I was genuinely impressed with the lighting and everything. The city looks stunning at times. A trash and crime-infested city has never looked so beautiful. Well, aside from Arkham Knight, obviously. I did also play this game on PC at 1440p, so that definitely helps, and you can actually remove the 60 FPS cap in the game files, so it was a great experience getting to play with like 200 FPS. Oh, and of course the soundtrack for this game is fantastic, especially towards the end of the game. I wanted to save a specific part of this video to talk about the Catwoman DLC for Arkham City. Story-wise, it ties into Batman's story really well, and is essentially Catwoman's perspective of the build-up to Protocol 10. Like I said at the beginning, I think it weaves and ties into the main plot really well. Two-Face and Poison Ivy have pretty large roles in it. Also, of course, getting to play as Catwoman was really unique and refreshing as well, since she has many different animations from Batman that suit her own personality. She can also climb on ceilings upside down, which made the stealth sections with her really fun. She has her own unique way of traversal with her whip and climbing with her claws, where you have to get good timing to climb faster. She even gets her own skill tree and upgrades separate from Batman's. I will say, I thought the final boss fight was kind of underwhelming, but aside from that, I really enjoyed the DLC, and it flows with the main game really well. So, should you buy Batman Arkham City in 2022? I'm sure you already know the answer to that. Absolutely yes. It has to be one of the best Batman stories you can experience. The gameplay is extremely satisfying and improved upon in so many ways from Asylum. The world looks beautiful with lots of villains to take down, and the graphics still hold up really well. Plus, it's got a good Catwoman DLC to go with it. The game is almost 11 years old now, so I'm sure you can find it really cheap if you don't own the game already. But that about concludes my thoughts on Batman Arkham City. Let me know what you think of the game if you've played it already, or if this video helped you decide whether or not to try it for the first time in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and considered subscribing to the channel if you're new. Also, feel free to check out my Arkham Asylum review if you haven't yet. But other than that, thanks for watching everyone, and have a great rest of your day.